The Georgia Bulldogs find themselves in a situation where they just lost Carson Beck for the year, potentially. According to reports, he is out indefinitely. This could be a huge loss depending on who you ask. Some people love Carson Beck, but I think there are a lot of Georgia fans who believe Beck is holding the team back. A team that had close games against Kentucky, Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, losses against Alabama and Ole Miss. Many primarily point to Carson Beck as one of the reasons they lost or had those close games. Now, there were times where wideouts weren't getting open and there were times where they just flat out dropped the ball. But at the end of the day, when you look at Carson Beck, you cannot deny that the guy has had a regression in comparison to the year that he had last year. A year where he had 3,941 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. That year alone put him as the Heisman favorite for this up-and-coming year. A year that he finished with 3,485 yards, 28 touchdowns. He did get more TDs, however, he has 2 times as many turnovers. He had 3 games this year where he threw at least 3 interceptions, but even with that being the case, they still won 2 of those 3 games. And that shows you how good this Georgia football team is. They have the ability to overcome the turnovers, overcome the drops, and the inconsistent play from that offense. So is Georgia actually finished if Carson Beck is indeed out for the entirety of the year? I don't think so. I think this Georgia team is just that good where they have a defense that can lock down at any point in the game. They just have to turn it on, because we have seen lapses in this defense where it does not look like they are locked in all the way. But once they do, once they turn it on, this is one of the better defenses in the country. And they also have plenty of time to get the backup quarterback Gunnar Stockton ready for the playoffs. A guy who looked okay for the most part, as long as Georgia does not try to turn him into something that he isn't. Keep the playbook as simple as you need to and play towards his strengths, whatever they may be. I think they'll be fine though in the long term. This is a situation that you hate to go through, because even though Carson Beck is a guy that can throw some interceptions, he is still a guy who can put you in position to win some games. He has had games where he has had a lot of yardage and some touchdowns. Like I said, you kind of have to take the good with the bad. He almost reminds me of the NFL version of Jameis Winston. He may put up 330 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, but then again, he'll have 3 turnovers. And I have seen some people say, well, since Georgia quarterback is gone, they shouldn't be in the playoffs, just like FSU missed the playoffs because of Jordan Travis' injury. And we know how that situation panned out. They missed the playoffs even though they were undefeated. Now, this is where the 12-team playoff works. You go undefeated, you win your conference championship, you're automatically in. No debates, no ifs, ands, or buts, no questions. So that bodes well for anybody in this situation going forward down the line. We do not have to worry about another FSU situation. But let's turn our attention to Georgia and their playoff bracket for just a second. If you look at it, they will have to play either Notre Dame or Indiana. 2 schools I think they can beat with or without Carson Beck. And I don't know about y'all, but I trust Notre Dame just about as much as I trust Mississippi weather in the middle of the winter. One day it's hot, one day it's cold, it's windy outside and it's raining, it's dry, we ain't got nothing. I don't trust Notre Dame or Indiana at this point. They gotta prove to me that they can get it done against the big dog. Notre Dame continues to fool people, and maybe this is their year, but we will see. Indiana played against Ohio State, their first glimpse of competition, and it got ugly. So at the end of the day, do I think this is still a team that can get it done? Yes, and I really do hate this for Carson Beck. It almost seems as if he has that Brock Purdy injury, a UCL tear. Nothing has been officially put out there yet, so it's hard for me to actually speak on exactly what is going on. But if it is indeed a UCL tear, he is finished for the rest of the year, and he might as well get ready for the NFL Combine, because he does have to work his stock up a little bit. He'll still get drafted. There's no problem with that, because the NFL is very low on quarterbacks, and somebody is going to pull the trigger one way or another. The conversation that is the most fascinating to me is the fact that I do see a lot of Georgia fans saying that they believe that they will be better off without Carson Beck playing in the first place. And I don't necessarily know how I feel about that notion, because Carson Beck is not the only reason why this offense has not been striving the same way that it has in the past, when you had old Stetson Bennett and Brock Bowers and Lad McConkey. That offense was nasty, but at the end of the day, it's not that same juice. And we know that Lad is going to the NFL, and we know that Brock Bowers is going to the NFL, and those two guys are not there with Georgia right now. The running game does not look the same as it has in the past, so you can look at even more reasons as to why the Georgia offense does not look the same. Carson Beck looks like he's out there trying to force different things when he does not necessarily need to. I don't know if that's because in the back of his mind he knows that if he doesn't get it done right then, he don't necessarily know when it's going to get done. But the fact that Georgia defense seems to have multiple gears, and I don't know what it is, Georgia fans, y'all tell me. It's something about that defense that I just like. It seems like as the game continues to progress, they just get better and better. But the thing about it is, though, like I said, they have had some slow starts in certain games. As long as they don't do that throughout the playoffs, I think they'll be fine. And there's one more man, one more person, one more thing that I haven't talked about in this entire video as to why Georgia is nowhere near to being done. And when I say that, I'm not saying that it's impossible for somebody to beat them in the first round and them being one and done. But what I am saying is Georgia is not going to be an easy out just because the quarterback is out. This is not going to be like that. I don't believe it at all. The reason why is because they have a guy under the, I don't know, headphone set at coach who I think is the best coach in the playoffs right now. And that is Kirby Smart. I don't know how you feel about the guy. I don't know how you perceive him. I know he has had some things this year that I looked at him and said, Kirby, what are you doing? Just like when he pushed that MSU guy, I was like, Kirby, you know that you ain't supposed to put your hands on players. Anyways, let me continue. He's the best coach in the playoffs right now, and we do have some good ones. We got Dan Lanning in here, we got Signetti in here. I think he's a up and coming coach, even though it's his first year there. I think he's going to be pretty good. We also have some frauds among us. I'm not going to talk about the frauds. I'm going to leave that for a little bit later. Even our guy, Mr. Clemson himself, Dabo Swinney, is one of the better coaches in this entire thing. If I'm forgetting one of your coaches, I'm sorry, but if your coach is a fraud, you know he's a fraud. But with all of that being said, I think Georgia will be just fine in terms of being competitive in this college football playoffs. It's going to be interesting to see if he cannot go. If indeed Carson Beck is out, some news that I think will not drop until later on. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be interesting to see how the backup Gunnar Stockton performs. But that's why we love college football. I'll see y'all in the next one. Don't forget to like, comment, and also subscribe.